When Jean-Michel Basquiat died at 27, he left behind over 3,000 artworks, yet most people know barely a fraction of his extraordinary story. His meteoric rise from homeless teenager to international art star took just 7 years, transforming the art world forever. Behind the canvases that now command over $100 million lies a narrative more fascinating than his art itself. Basquiat's journey was filled with contradictions, brilliant yet tormented, celebrated yet misunderstood. From speaking 3 languages before adolescence to starring in independent films, his talents extended far beyond painting. These 10 revelations will transform how you see one of the 20th century's most misunderstood geniuses, a complex artist whose work continues to challenge our understanding of creativity itself. The linguistic prodigy, Basquiat's trilingual mind. Basquiat's artistic voice was shaped by a remarkable linguistic foundation. By age 11, he already spoke English, Spanish, and French fluently, an extraordinary gift that became central to his artistic innovation. His father's Puerto Rican heritage and mother's Haitian background provided this multilingual framework, creating a mind that naturally moved between different systems of meaning. Examining Basquiat's canvases reveals they're not just visual expressions but linguistic puzzles. His notebooks show a mind constantly shifting between languages, thoughts in English transition to Spanish or French phrases. Words like sangre or esclavos appear alongside pluie or état, forcing viewers to navigate multiple linguistic terrains simultaneously. This trilingual ability directly informed his famous crossed-out words technique. By striking through text, he paradoxically draws more attention to it, creating tension between visibility and erasure. The anatomical obsession, Gray's Anatomy as artistic blueprint. Beneath the layers of text in Basquiat's paintings runs another system of meaning altogether, the human form rendered with surprising medical precision. This anatomical vocabulary originated after a childhood hospitalization, when his mother gave him Gray's Anatomy, the classic medical textbook that became the blueprint for his artistic language. The book's detailed illustrations of muscles, bones, and organs provided a framework he would deploy throughout his career. Art historian Fred Hoffman noted that Basquiat retained a nearly photographic memory of Gray's illustrations, allowing him to recreate anatomical structures without reference materials, as seen in works like Untitled, Skull from 1981. In Catharsis, 1983, these elements appear with clinical precision, though deliberately distorted. The skeletal forms reveal human fragility, appearing simultaneously ancient like cave paintings and modern like medical diagrams. From canvas to concert, Basquiat's experimental music career. The canvas may have captured Basquiat's visual imagination, but the recording studio was equally vital to his creative expression. While many recognize him as a painter, few appreciate that he was the founder of an experimental noise band called Gray, a deliberate reference to the medical textbook that had profoundly influenced his visual language. Gray wasn't merely a side project. From 1979 to 1980, they performed in New York's underground venues, creating soundscapes where clarinet wails collided with metallic percussion and distorted synthesizers. These dissonant textures mirrored the raw energy of his brushwork. Michael Holman, a fellow band member, noted, "We deconstructed music as Basquiat would later deconstruct the art world. In tracks like Drum Mode, rhythms shatter into sonic fragments before reforming with renewed intensity." These musical experiments directly translated to canvas. His repeating visual motifs function as refrains, while his layering of paint mirrors the sampling and manipulation he pioneered with Gray. The Warhol connection, collaboration and controversy. While Basquiat's visual techniques drew from multiple influences, his most transformative artistic relationship began with a moment of spontaneous audacity. In 1982, Basquiat spotted Andy Warhol dining at a Manhattan restaurant with art dealer Bruno Bischofberger. Rather than simply introducing himself, Basquiat rushed to his studio, returning with a portrait of himself and Warhol, the paint still wet, and presented it to the pop art icon. This audacious gesture bridged 2 distinct artistic worlds, Warhol's methodical commercial pop aesthetics and Basquiat's raw street expressionism. Their collaboration produced over 100 works using a unique call-and-response method, each artist influencing the other's approach. Their 1985 exhibition at Tony Shafrazi Gallery, however, was devastatingly dismissed by critic Vivian Rayner, who described Basquiat as Warhol's mascot. This public humiliation fractured their relationship, leaving Basquiat with unresolved grief after Warhol's unexpected death in 1987, accelerating his already troubling drug use. The reluctant movie star, Basquiat's Downtown 81. While grief consumed Basquiat after Warhol's death, this tragic end stands in stark contrast to an earlier chapter in his artistic journey. In 1980, years before gallery fame claimed him, Basquiat found himself in a surreal situation, starring in a film where art imitated life too perfectly. Cast as the lead in New York Beat movie, he portrayed a homeless artist navigating Manhattan's decaying downtown landscape. Graffiti-covered buildings, trash-strewn alleys, and vibrant street culture, while actually being homeless himself. The film created an extraordinary paradox. Basquiat would perform scenes depicting his character's struggles during the day, then face those identical struggles as night fell, sleeping on park benches or friends' couches when filming wrapped. This wasn't method acting, but his reality, the camera capturing not just an actor, but the authentic vulnerability of an artist yet to be discovered. This footage, eventually rescued and released as Downtown 81 13 years after his death, stands as more than a film. It's a cultural artifact that transformed our understanding of Basquiat's legacy by preserving both his artistic process and the raw, electric atmosphere of early 80s New York that shaped him. The $110.5 million canvas, record-breaking legacy. The raw talent captured in that rescued footage would eventually translate into astronomical financial value. The same hands we see creating art in Downtown 81 would produce a canvas that became the apex of Basquiat's complex legacy, selling for $110.5 million. A masterpiece born from struggle, now commanding astronomical attention from the very system he criticized. This skull-like face, rendered in violent strokes of blue, red, and yellow, was created in 1982, when Basquiat was barely 21. Its transformation from a $19,000 sale to a record-breaking auction represents a seismic shift in how the art market values Black artists. When Japanese billionaire Yusaku Maezawa purchased it in 2017, he announced, "I want to share that experience with as many people as possible." This public-minded acquisition contrasts sharply with Basquiat's lifelong struggle for institutional recognition, as major museums largely ignored his work during his brief career. The sale placed him in an elite category previously reserved almost exclusively for white European masters. SAMO, the cryptic graffiti persona before fame. Long before collectors paid millions for his paintings, Basquiat was engaging in a more subversive form of artistic expression. The walls of Soho became his manifesto, as mysterious phrases signed SAMO appeared overnight, challenging New Yorkers with uncomfortable questions about society. SAMO, Basquiat's collaboration with Al Diaz in the late 1970s, functioned as a secret artistic code deployed where the art world would encounter it. Unlike contemporaries creating colorful subway tags, they placed intellectual provocations directly on the doorsteps of establishments Basquiat would later conquer. When the Village Voice published SAMO Graffiti, Bourgeois, or CIA. In 1978, the exposure created tension between the collaborators. The partnership dissolved with SAMO as dead messages throughout Manhattan, marking Basquiat's transition from anonymous street philosopher to gallery artist. The Madonna connection, romance before fame. The declaration of SAMO's death coincided with Basquiat's rising profile in Manhattan's art circles and his entrance into unexpected social territory. In 1982, while still virtually unknown to mainstream America, Basquiat formed a connection with another struggling artist whose name would eventually become just as recognizable as his own. At the Mud Club, where cigarette smoke hung thick in the air and downtown's artists, musicians, and scenesters merged nightly, Madonna and Basquiat's worlds collided. Their passionate but tempestuous romance played out between her Spartan East Village walk-up and his paint-splattered Great Jones Street loft, already filling with sought-after canvases. Her roommate noticed. She was clearly falling for him. Their relationship deteriorated as his heroin use escalated. Years later, Madonna reflected, "He was an amazing man and deeply talented. I loved him." When they parted, Basquiat reclaimed his gifted paintings, returning them defaced with black paint, a gesture both artistic and wounded. Crowning Black excellence, Basquiat's cultural heroes. Basquiat's crown motif appears throughout his work like a visual signature, but it represents far more than mere decoration. This three-pointed symbol served as a deliberate coronation of Black excellence in a society that systematically erased such contributions from cultural narratives. In Charles I, Basquiat elevates jazz saxophonist Charlie Parker to royal status, incorporating references to Parker's nickname, Bird, alongside the crown and text noting, "Most young kings get their head cut off." Rather than randomly selecting subjects, Basquiat methodically created an alternative historical pantheon. His crowns transform figures like Jack Johnson and Joe Louis into kings, elevating Black athletes and musicians typically marginalized in mainstream culture. The symbol functions as both artistic device and political statement, a reclamation of power and dignity. This royal symbolism of resistance continues to resonate today, with artists like Jay-Z and Kehinde Wiley incorporating Basquiat's crown, extending his project of rewriting cultural hierarchies. The 27 Club, Basquiat's tragic end and enduring influence. The same hands that painted crowns for others would never complete another canvas after August 12, 1988. His assistant found him unresponsive in his Great Jones Street studio, a brilliant light, extinguished at just 27. "I am not a Black artist. I am an artist." This declaration from Basquiat's final New York Times interview revealed his complex relationship with identity. While his work celebrated Black cultural figures, he resisted being defined solely by race. Understanding such categorization marginalized artists of color. Warhol's death pushed him deeper into isolation. As his paintings commanded ever higher prices, the man behind them disintegrated. Mary Boone noted, "He would lock himself in his studio for days, emerging with brilliant canvases but looking increasingly hollow. His funeral drew 300 mourners spanning multiple worlds." Keith Haring later created "A Pile of Crowns" in tribute. The Whitney retrospective in 1992 marked the beginning of his transformation from outsider to centerpiece of the canon. In the end, Basquiat's legacy transcends conventional art history. Though his creative flame burned for merely 27 years, his artistic voice continues to resonate with remarkable clarity. He embodied perfect contradictions, painting on refrigerator doors while homeless one year, commanding six-figure prices the next, celebrated yet marginalized, embraced yet misunderstood. What makes Basquiat's work endure is its transformation of personal and collective trauma into visual poetry that refuses categorization. Like a lighthouse cutting through fog, his canvases illuminate America's deepest wounds, beckoning us to look beneath the surface of our cultural landscape. Basquiat wasn't just ahead of his time. He created for a future audience finally ready to confront what he revealed all along, a mirror reflecting both our fractures and potential for healing.